So let's figure out how you can start earning if you're working for yourself and if you're writing for yourself. Like Aditi touched upon, number one priority for you is to start building a loyal audience for your work. Most of the times people think, oh, my interest is very niche, like nobody will be interested in the kind of things that I'm interested in. But with the internet, the best part about the internet is you can find an audience literally from any corner of the world. When I first started writing blogs, I used to find audiences from countries that I don't even didn't even know existed. Um, and that's all because I used to write about a specific interest of mine, and sometimes people really resonate with you. You will be absolutely surprised to see that how many people are interested in the same things that you're interested in. You could be writing about pens if that is your interest, and people will find you if they feel like, yes, your content is interesting or your content is really informative enough for them to stick around, right? So your number one priority should be to build an audience that is loyal and that really loves your work, that really loves what you do as much as you do, right? Step number two is you can explore different streams of income. Number one, I've seen most commonly people, like even if you follow some artists on Instagram or anywhere else, they usually set up Patreon accounts or Buy Me a Coffee accounts. Now, what are these? These are basically subscription based models. So, say I really like Aditi's work, what she does at Curious Sapiens, right? And I want to find a way to support her. So, I'll ask her if she has a Patreon account. And what Aditi can do via Patreon is she can set up a model, like a payment model, every month. Say, pay me 500 rupees every month, or it could be as little as pay me 10 rupees every month. Based on her audience, she can have different tiers, saying level one is pay me 10 rupees a month, level two is pay, say, 200 rupees a month, level three is say, pay me 1,000 rupees a month. Now, what she does in these different levels is up to her. So it could be as much as giving you exclusive access to her content even before other people see it. That is what people most commonly do. Or giving you shout outs in their content, saying, oh, this person has been supporting me, thank you so much. So whenever they publish like a blog, whenever they publish a social media post, they'll have your name written saying this person has Jagruti has really supported me. She's a level 2 member of my page, my Patreon page. So thank you so much. So the idea behind platforms like Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee is to support artists so that they can do what they want to do. Especially because in our country, like we emphasize a lot on traditional forms of work, like maybe accountancy or engineering or medicine. We don't support the arts as much, and that this is like world over, but especially in our country. So the idea behind setting up these accounts is that your audience, which is loyal to you, can still continue to support you irrespective of what you do. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is you could have subscriptions for your newsletters. So if you really like sharing your thoughts with your audience, you could start a newsletter. It could be a weekly newsletter, it could be a bi-weekly newsletter, or even a monthly newsletter. And you can pen down all your thoughts that you have and send it to your audience for a fee. There is a writer on Instagram called Rega. She used to work at BuzzFeed as well. So what she had done is she set up a newsletter model. So for 9 weeks, 9 Mondays, she sent across one newsletter every week. And then the payment model for that was 900 rupees. So if you calculated, it would come down to 100 rupees per newsletter, but you had to pay it at once. So that is another stream of income that you could look at. And if 20 people or even 100 people are subscribing to your newsletter, that's your income right there, right? And for content that you really love creating, and you're not really writing for anybody else. So that really works out. Number three is you can sell what you write. So I'll tell you about people who have done this. So if you write letters or you write poetry, you could charge for that. So there are writers out there who write letters and on your behalf to your loved ones, and they charge a certain specific amount for that letter that they write, or they write poetry. say if you want to gift a piece of poem to your mother or your father, you could tell this poet saying, you know what, this is what I think about my parents and I don't really know how to convey it. So they can write a really beautiful poem for you and they'll charge you for it. And number four is you could partner with brands that are most similar to your style and voice. And you could really promote their products or you could promote their services on your blog to your loyal audience. I think this is the most common form of income that we see, where you see sponsored content on Instagram and you see sponsored content on any other platforms. This is also the most viable way of making money, because like we discussed, brands do have a big budget allocated to content creators specifically. Someone has asked, can you please repeat the newsletter portion? What can you create on Patreon? Can you only create videos or anything else? Rusham, you could be creating absolutely anything. You just have to be an artist. That is the prerequisite. You could be creating paintings, you could be creating YouTube videos, you could be on Instagram, you could be microblogging, you could be doing anything. And Patreon allows you to write exactly what you do for your profession, what you do for your work. And then it lets you customize your tiers as well. So it's totally up to you as to how much your audience wants to pay. So Sunanda has asked, can you please repeat the newsletter portion? Sure. So I'll tell you specifically one example. So there is a newsletter that I receive every week on news in the country, on news in India. Okay, I don't really like switching on the TV for my news. I don't like the blaring noise and all of that. It makes me very anxious. So I still need to know what's happening in India, right? I subscribe to one newsletter. So this newsletter comes to me every day, and it's very curated work. It tells me, okay, in this category, it's just like a newspaper. In sports, this is what is happening. In entertainment, this is what is happening. This is what we need to pay attention to. This is what is happening with the environment. These are the bills that are passed. These are the bills are yet to be passed. These are our petrol prices. These are our diesel prices. It could be as simple as that. And then because I get this on an everyday basis, some newsletters are for free, some newsletters are paid. Okay, so if I wish to receive that newsletter on a monthly basis, I will go to that website of that person who is sending me out these newsletters, and I will say, you know what, please make me a subscriber as well. And then I will pay and I will receive that newsletter, say for the next 1 week or for however long I've subscribed to their newsletter. So what people are doing these days is they are not just in traditional terms, this is what a newsletter is, but they don't just send it only for propagating news, only for sending across news. It could be for anything. It could be to speak about what's happening in their life. It could be about what's happening in your specific profession. If you're a doctor and you want to know about the latest happenings in your profession, you could subscribe to newsletters that writers write specifically for your profession, right? You could be doing anything of that, and then you could charge on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis based on whatever your audience likes. Okay, are we good? Thank you. Should we move on? Yep, Rupi Kaur is a poet. She started off as an Insta poet. So this whole phenomenon of an Insta poet that we see today, with everybody starting and putting their writing on Instagram, started off pretty much with her rise as a poet. So she's an Indian Canadian based in Toronto. Um, so she started off by posting a lot of her work on Instagram. She started off by posting a lot of her poetry on Instagram. And over time, she gained such a loyal audience that she self-published her own book. She usually, when you need to publish your book, you need to approach a publisher, and you need to go through multiple rounds of edits and screenings by editors, because multiple people are approaching the same publisher on an every single day basis. So this is a classic case study in what you can do when you have a loyal fan base and you have a loyal audience, right? You don't need to go to any publisher. You can publish your own books, which is what Rupi did. Once she had a sizable audience, she self-published her own book. Her first book is called Milk and Honey. It's filled with poetry that she has written. And then once that picked up, People started buying it. It became a bestseller by itself with no publishers backing. Then a big publisher like Penguin, I think Penguin picked it up, or a big publisher picked it up, and then they started publishing her books and they started marketing it across the world. So this is a classic example of what you could be doing when you work for yourself, right? You could take it as big as you could start off small by posting, say, one post every day, or you could take it as big as publishing your own books and signing up with publishers. Okay, so I was talking about selling your poetry, right? So this lady is called Harnit. I follow her on Instagram. So she, by profession, is a product marketing manager. She works at Swiggy, but she's also a poet on Instagram, and she keeps writing a lot. Most of the time, she writes for her own friends. She writes about her own feelings and all of that. At one point in time, she was also selling her poetry. So you just have to approach her saying, I want to dedicate a poem to my boyfriend, and this is what I feel about him. So she would write like an entire poem for you, and you would pay for that specific poem, right? So it's almost like you're paying for a specific product. This is one income stream that you could be looking at. Okay, so working for yourself is really awesome because there is absolutely no limit to your creativity. You could be doing and writing about whatever you want under the sun. You get to tell stories, you get to tell things and communicate things that you really want to. You work for yourself, you are your own boss. You don't need approvals, you don't need screenings, nobody's editing your work, and you, in a sense, are responsible for setting up and running your own business, right? And on the other hand, when you have a loyal audience, you get to connect with people on a more personal level, and these people could be from anywhere around the world. So these are some of the skills that you will need to pursue writing by yourself. If you need to set up a business by yourself, some of them are creativity, originality, authenticity. I can't stress enough on how important this is, because your voice needs to be your own. You can't be your place. Yeah, thank you. Your voice, what you're communicating, has to be authentic. It has to come from your own. You can't be copying this, because people, like, as much as you can copy things and get away with it, the internet is a very open space, and people will know that you have copied or even taken inspiration from some other account and you have put it on yours. You need to be able to take a fresh spin on things. You could be talking about the same thing that 100 people are talking about, which will happen because there are so many people in the world and there are so many voices in the world. It will happen that your point of view will match with somebody else's. But how do you take that fresh spin on things? Like, we were writing about our favorite restaurants, right? If um, five other people were writing about Indian cuisine, they would probably be writing the same thing. But the way you approach it, the way you like communicating about things, is what will set you apart. Ability to communicate your thoughts clearly, a fair understanding of your target audience, and an interest to engage with your audience. So when I say target audience, it's usually like the demographic. What is a demographic? Demographic is bifurcating people by their gender. Say, is your audience mostly women, mostly men? What are their age groups? What are their interests? Based on what their interests are, you could also be reverse engineering and curating or creating content accordingly based on what their interest could be, right?